Okay, guys, here it is. This is Ray Dalio's book Principles, and a lot of you guys had asked for book reviews, right? So, and the goal for me is to give the Spark Notes version, if you will, version of this book. And I have a funny story for you because this is not the first take. This is the fourth take. The first take took 25 minutes. The second take, which I don't think anyone's going to listen to a 25-minute book review. The second take took about 10, 15 minutes. Took 15 minutes. I'm just trying to make myself feel a little bit better. So we're getting better, but I still don't think anyone's going to listen to a 10 to 15-minute book review. So this one, I'm going to try to make really short and really... Here's the deal, guys. This is a 550-page book. It's a long book, and it took me a long time to read. I think it's an exception because I think it's actually worth reading. I think you should read the book if you have, just read the book. Actually, no ifs, ands, or buts. I think you should read the book, okay? It's a really good book. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you just a few points that really helped me with this book. So just to give you some background, when I picked this book up, I knew I was making a lot of mistakes in my life because of my own mental blocks, right? Or hurdles, if you will. But I didn't necessarily know what they were. I just knew that I was making mistakes or I wasn't going as fast as I could have been going, right? So I started reading the book and I started listening to the story or reading the story about Ray Dalio and kind of understanding what, he did and how he did it and his mentality behind things. And if you've been listening to a bunch of my content before, like a lot of what I focus on is self-mastery, right? So if so that's what I want to share the most with. And I think this book does a really good job with helping you understand how to live, a better, more effective life. When I say better, I mean a life that is a life full of progress, okay? So the general overview is that Ray Dalio calls life principles it's basically his way of making decisions over and over again, right? He calls himself a professional decision maker, which technically he is, right? He's someone who invests in the financial markets, right? And on a daily basis, he's making decisions about what he wants to invest in, what he wants to not invest in, right? He's constantly making decisions. And our lives are no different. We're always making decisions about what we want to do with our lives. So as far as what, the biggest things to get out of the book is, number one, I think is being what he calls radically open-minded, right? There's a very high possibility that we don't actually know what's right. And I think, when you think about it, it logically makes sense, right? More people out there have the answers that we don't necessarily have. So that's kind of the first point about being radically open-minded. The other thing, now on top of that, right, he talks about people who are believable, right? It's great to go speak with other people because they probably have answers that you don't have, but not everybody has good answers, right? This is like a very similar to being careful of who you take advice from, right? In the book, he calls them believable people, okay? And believable people are basically people that have had a track record for success related to the thing that you want to learn more about, okay? So, for example, I am not an architect. I have literally no idea about architecture, right? So for someone to ask me about architecture, I'm not a believable person. You shouldn't be asking me about architecture. You should go ask an architect that has been doing architecture for 5, 10, 15, 20 years about architecture if that's what you want to learn more about. If you want to learn about marketing and online advertising, sure, I'll talk to you about it all day, right? So it's just being aware of who the person you're talking to is and what their background is, and understanding, are they really believable or not? Or are they someone that I probably shouldn't listen to because they'll steer me in the wrong direction, right? And I don't know if he says it in the book. I think he says something along the lines of, basically, no advice is worse than wrong advice, right? Which is so true. Like, if you get good advice, you're going in the right direction, right? But if you get wrong advice, you're going in the opposite direction. So you really don't want to get wrong advice. So he says, be radically open-minded, speak with people who are believable, and related to believable people, he says triangulate, right? And he gives a story about his own fight with cancer. and I'll share that story with you guys. So he talks about he has this, he does his routine checkup, and he finds that there's some cancerous, he's got some cancerous growth in his body. And the first doctor says that he's basically got a couple months to live. So then he goes to the second doctor, and the second doctor says, no, actually, there's a procedure out there that we can do. It's an operation. It's really risky, though. There's like a 10% chance that you're going to make it out. 10% is not really high. Like if you had to roll the dice on, 10% chance of living, 90% chance dying, would you do that? Probably not. Like it's a really bad chance. So that's the second person. The third person said, oh, you don't really have to do anything. Just monitor it for the next 6 months and see if it grows. If it doesn't, great. If not, then, you should probably be fine. So when he heard that third doctor, he was like, all right, this is like completely different than what everyone else told me. Let me get the other two doctors on the phone, which he did. So he got the other two doctors on the phone. Now all three doctors are speaking together, and they all agreed that the third doctor's course of action was the best course of action, which it was, and it worked, and now he's okay. So it just shows, like, even people who are professionals at what they do, and again, mind you, Ray Dalio is a billionaire. He has access to the best of the best. So the first two are not idiots, right? They're not like dumb people. They're not bad doctors. You just need to triangulate your information, right? Not everyone has the answer, regardless if they're an expert or not, right? So make sure you're getting good advice from believable people, and you're triangulating your information wisely. What's another thing? So the other thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about, I just want to make sure I have my notes right, is... Oh, this is a really big one. Okay, so within like embracing reality and dealing with it, like that first principle, he talks about weighing secondary and tertiary consequences. Okay, this is this is probably one of the biggest things that you could take away from this book. Well, let's use working out as an example. Going to the gym, like let's say you're home, you're relaxing, you just came back from a long day of work. Going to the gym isn't like, there's no like flow to that. Like you have to kind of get off the couch. You got to change into your new clothes. You got to pack your other clothes if you shower at the gym. Like you got to make sure you have your protein bottle or whatever it is that you do. Like there's a significant amount of resistance to go to the gym, right? And then when you get to the gym, you're going to be going through pain and like physical exertion, and like it's not comfortable, right? And those are the primary consequences of going to the gym, right? It hurts. It's, out of your way. There's resistance, right? But what's the secondary consequence, right? It's not necessarily a bad consequence. The secondary consequence is you feel proud about yourself. You feel, literally, physically, you're more healthy. Your blood is flowing better. You have better cognitive order, right? There are all these levels of better, of this physical benefit, right? You're literally healthier, okay? Your skin might improve, okay? Your hair might improve, right? Just from being healthier. But then what's the tertiary consequences? Again, not necessarily a bad thing, but what happens as a tertiary effect, right? Maybe because you've been working out so much, you figure to yourself, okay, if I'm working out so much, I might as well actually just keep a better diet, because every time I go to the gym and then I eat like brownies, I'm kind of just screwing my workout away, right? That's one tertiary example. Another tertiary example is like confidence, right? Like you've built rapport with yourself that every single day that you didn't want to go to the gym, you went to the gym, right? And now you have this feeling of like self-esteem within you, right? And grittiness within you, and self-trust within you, right? So, and this is just a workout example, but this goes with everything, right? Think about with your career, with, your relationships, right? Like you might be tired one day to, call your significant other or call your wife or whatever it is. And, it might not seem like a big deal up front, but like maybe that person had a really bad day and just wanted to hear your voice. Okay. We often look at the primary consequences of things and kind of shy away from them, because the first thing that comes up is usually difficult, but the secondary and the tertiary things, that's where all the reward is, right? And the harder the upfront work is, the sweeter the secondary and tertiary things are. So, I really, that stood out to me a lot. And then the last thing I want, again, I told you guys I want to keep this short. I'm getting close to the 10-minute mark. The last thing I want to talk about is what he calls using the 5-step process to get what you want out of life. So have clear goals. Let's focus on one part. Have clear goals, identify and don't tolerate problems, diagnose problems to get to their root cause, design a plan, push through to completion, remember that weakness doesn't matter if you find solutions. The part that I wanted to talk about was push through to completion, right? I think this is something that was also not talked about as much, right? And it's related to primary, secondary, tertiary consequences, right? Well, like what we just talked about. You got to push through to completion because, there's going to be resistance regardless of what you do, right? And if you don't push through, you're just not going to get what you want, right? Like you can't expect to get something good without doing anything in return. Like you're just going to have to push through. And sometimes it just sucks, right? But when you remember the secondary consequences and the tertiary consequences or the things that might come out of struggling now, it should be able to let you realize that, hey, listen, like what you're doing is actually pretty important. So again, I don't want to make this video too long. Those are kind of the biggest points that I took away from this that I wanted to share with you guys because I think you'd be able to benefit from it. If you like this, let me know what you like about it. If it was too long, let me know that you didn't watch the whole thing. That way I can make the future videos a little bit shorter. If you have any comments, recommendations, whatever it is, again, this is the first review that I'm doing, and your feedback is pretty important because then I get to shift things around a little bit to make them better, or whatever it is. And if you really like this, and if you think that it was helpful, the best thing that you can do for me, the only thing that I could really ask for is that you share it with someone else. So share it with someone else, and look forward for the next book review. Anyway, here's Principles by Ray Dalio. Like I said, I recommend you pick it up. I'll talk to you guys all soon. See ya.